The day didn't feel risky. There was sunlight, people nearby, the sense that nothing bad could happen here. The kind of setting people pass through without thinking twice. At some point, one person stopped moving forward. Not because anything felt wrong, but because nothing did. And by the time the absence was noticed, the moment had already slipped away. No alarms, no warning, just the belief that daylight meant safety. Her name was Brooke Wilberger. Brooke was expected to finish what she started, expected to arrive where she was going, expected to be seen again shortly after. Nothing about that moment suggested it would become the last time she was seen. Being there didn't feel dangerous, felt routine, a pause in the middle of an ordinary day, the kind people rarely question. That sense of ease would matter later. Most people imagine disappearances happen at night, in isolation, in places no one goes. This wasn't that. And that assumption would shape everything that followed. The place Brooke was last seen wasn't hidden. It wasn't remote. It was a public space. Open, familiar, and trusted. Minutes passed, then more time than anyone expected. And with each passing moment, the idea that nothing was wrong became harder to defend. Someone else had been close enough to notice her, close enough to approach, close enough to disappear just as easily. What began as a delayed return quickly became something no one wanted to name. This wasn't about a lack of witnesses. It was about timing, and how fast a normal moment can vanish. Search efforts mattered. Memories mattered. And the smallest overlooked detail would take years to fully understand. To understand what happened to Brooke Wilberger, you have to look closely at the place she vanished from, and why it took so long for answers to arrive. Brooke Carol Wilberger was 19 years old. She lived her life with a kind of forward momentum that felt natural for someone her age. She was a college student at Oregon State University, balancing classes, work, and friendships in a town built around youthful movement. Bikes passed constantly through Corvallis. Students rode them everywhere. Brooke did too. She was reliable. She was punctual. She followed routines. Friends and family described her as grounded and thoughtful, someone who didn't seek attention but earned trust easily. Brooke wasn't reckless or impulsive. She showed up when she said she would. She answered calls. She kept plans. If something changed, she let people know. That consistency mattered. Because when Brooke didn't arrive where she was expected, people noticed quickly. Brooke was working at a local coffee shop near the Oregon State campus. It wasn't just a job, it was part of her rhythm. Ride her bike, clock in, work her shift, ride home. The route was familiar. She had taken it countless times before. That morning, she left on her bicycle as she always did. She wore clothes suited for work. She carried what she needed. She planned to return. There was no indication she felt unsafe. No message sent expressing concern. No change in routine that might suggest hesitation. Brooke believed, as many do, that daylight and familiarity offered protection. That moving through known streets was safe. That belief shaped everything. Because Brooke never made it to work. When her shift began and she didn't arrive, concern started quietly. First, it felt like a delay. Flat tire, small detour, something explainable. But as minutes passed and then more time followed, that concern hardened into unease. Brooke did not disappear casually. She did not miss responsibilities without explanation. By the end of the day, it was clear something was wrong. Her bicycle would later be found near the route she took that morning. It stood as a marker, present, intact, untouched by time. Brooke herself was gone. No witnesses came forward describing an abduction, no surveillance footage captured the moment, no sound broke the routine of the day. And yet, somewhere along a familiar stretch of road, Brooke Wilberger's life had intersected with someone she had never met. Someone who would leave no immediate trace. Someone who would turn an ordinary bike ride into a mystery that would stretch on for years. At first, investigators had only absence, and a town waiting for answers. To understand why Brooke Wilberger's disappearance unsettled Corvallis so deeply, you have to understand the environment she moved through every day. Corvallis was a college town built on routine and repetition. Streets filled with bicycles. Sidewalks crowded with students heading to class. Neighborhoods shaped by familiarity, where faces became recognizable simply by passing often enough. It was a place where movement felt communal, not risky, where strangers blended into the background of daily life. Brooke fit into that rhythm naturally. She wasn't isolated. She wasn't disconnected. Her life was woven into a network of small, ordinary commitments. School, work, family check-ins, friendships that operated quietly but consistently. There were people who expected to see her. People who relied on her presence. That web of expectation is often what makes disappearances like this so jarring. Because nothing in Brooke's life pointed toward instability. She had no known conflicts, no secret plans to leave, no history of running away or breaking contact. Her relationships were steady rather than dramatic. She stayed close to her family, maintaining regular communication. She didn't vanish from social circles or withdraw unexpectedly. If something bothered her, she talked about it. If something changed, others knew. That predictability created a sharp contrast with what followed. When police began reconstructing Brooke's final movements, they quickly ruled out many of the scenarios that often complicate missing person cases. There was no evidence she left voluntarily, no indication of self-harm, no digital footprint suggesting she planned to disappear. Her bank activity stopped. Her phone went silent. The absence was total. Investigators turned their attention outward. They examined Brooke's route to work, a path she had traveled many times. It cut through areas shared by students and local residents alike. Portions were visible. Others offered moments of isolation, the kind of spaces people move through without thinking twice. And that detail mattered, because this was not a case built on personal relationships gone wrong. There was no known partner, no former friend, no one in Brooke's life who immediately raised suspicion. That lack of a familiar suspect forced investigators to confront a more unsettling possibility. That Brooke's disappearance may have involved a stranger, someone who did not know her history, did not belong to her life, did not need access through trust. That possibility reshaped the investigation. Police canvassed the area extensively. They spoke to neighbors, interviewed business owners, asked students if they had seen anything unusual that morning. But the answers were limited. People remembered the day as ordinary. The weather, the traffic, nothing stood out. And yet, Brooke had vanished in the middle of all of it. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, her case grew beyond Corvallis. Flyers spread across Oregon. Media coverage expanded. Tips poured in, from plausible sightings to vague impressions to false alarms that offered hope and then dissolved. Still no clear suspect emerged. The investigation began to rely on patience rather than momentum, on careful reconstruction rather than immediate breakthroughs, and on the unsettling reality that someone could move through a public space, commit a violent act, and disappear again without being seen. Somewhere within that silence, the truth waited. But it would not reveal itself quickly. Not yet. The timeline begins in the early hours of May 25, 2004. Brooke Wilberger left her apartment on her bicycle, heading toward her job. It was a route she knew well. Familiar streets, familiar intersections, a ride she had taken before without incident. She never arrived. When Brooke failed to show up for work, concern surfaced quickly. This was not someone who missed shifts without explanation. Calls were made, messages left, time passed, still nothing. By the end of the day, the absence could no longer be dismissed as a delay or a misunderstanding. Brooke had vanished mid-routine, somewhere between home and work, somewhere along a path that thousands of others traveled every week. Police responded with urgency. Search teams combed the area near Oregon State University. Volunteers joined law enforcement, walking ditches, checking wooded patches, scanning riverbanks. Flyers went up across town. Her bicycle was found abandoned near her usual route, upright, undamaged, out of place. That discovery shifted the tone of the investigation. A bicycle left behind suggested interruption at a moment that did not resolve naturally, at a routine that had been forcibly broken. Investigators expanded the search radius. They reviewed potential sightlines along the route. They examined areas where a vehicle could stop briefly without drawing attention. They asked whether anyone had heard a shout, seen a struggle, noticed something slightly off. But the morning had been quiet. Too quiet. There was no CCTV footage capturing the moment Brooke disappeared. No eyewitness account describing an abduction. No phone call, no message, no signal after she left home. Her digital footprint ended as cleanly as if someone had turned off a switch. That absence became its own kind of evidence. Over the following years, Brooke's case remained open and active. Tips continued to come in. Some led nowhere. Others circled back on themselves. Each new lead raised hope, then required careful elimination. Investigators preserved what little physical evidence they had. They revisited timelines. They compared reports. They looked for patterns in similar cases across the region. And slowly, quietly, a name began to surface. Not through a dramatic revelation, not through a single decisive clue, but through accumulated attention. In 2009, 5 years after Brooke disappeared, authorities received information that pointed them toward a man named Joel Courtney. At the time of Brooke's disappearance, Courtney had been living in Oregon. He had no known connection to her, no visible overlap, no immediate reason to be linked to the case, which was exactly what made the information significant. When investigators questioned Courtney, they did not rely on pressure or spectacle. They relied on patience, on corroboration, on details that could be checked, verified, tested. And then, unexpectedly, Courtney confessed. He admitted to abducting Brooke Wilberger. He provided details that had never been released publicly. He led authorities to a remote area of rural Oregon, far from Corvallis, far from campus, far from the bicycle left behind. There, investigators recovered Brooke's remains. Forensic testing confirmed her identity. The search that had stretched across years and communities had reached its end. But resolution did not bring relief. It brought weight, because the truth, once found, could not be undone. And because the quiet disappearance that had haunted Corvallis for half a decade now carried a finality that no one had wanted, but everyone needed. Still, one question remained. How had it taken so long? And what did this case reveal about the kind of danger that leaves no warning at all? With Brooke Wilberger's remains recovered and her identity confirmed, the investigation entered its final phase. What had once been a missing person case defined by absence now became a prosecution defined by certainty. Joel Courtney was formally charged with aggravated murder. The charge reflected both the severity of the crime and the circumstances under which it occurred. Prosecutors did not need to reconstruct a speculative narrative. They relied on Courtney's confession, the location of the remains, and the corroborating investigative findings that aligned with details only the perpetrator could have known. The legal process moved forward methodically. There was no sensational courtroom spectacle, no dramatic reversals. The case did not hinge on circumstantial inference alone. Courtney's admissions anchored the proceedings, and the physical recovery of Brooks' remains provided confirmation that could not be disputed. In 2010, Joel Courtney was convicted. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence was final. For Brooks' family, the verdict brought accountability, but not closure in the way people often imagine. Justice did not restore the years lost. It did not erase the unanswered moments between her departure that morning and the end of her life. It did not return the daughter, sister, and friend who had been taken without warning. But it did establish truth. And in cases like Brooks, truth matters. Brooke Wilberger was 19 years old. She was independent, responsible, in the process of building a life defined by quiet momentum rather than drama. She worked. She rode her bike. She followed routines that made sense because they had always been safe before. Her case reshaped how Corvallis understood safety. It altered how people thought about ordinary routes and familiar mornings, about how little distance can separate routine from tragedy, about how harm does not always announce itself with chaos or noise, but can arrive silently, leaving behind only absence. The investigation also left a broader imprint on law enforcement practices. It demonstrated the importance of preserving cases long after public attention fades, of revisiting evidence, of remaining open to new information even years later. Brooks' disappearance did not go unresolved because of indifference. It was solved because people kept looking. Her name is remembered not for how she died, but for how deeply her loss was felt, and how firmly the truth was eventually brought to light. The road she rode that morning still exists. The town still moves. Life continues. But Brooke Wilberger's story remains part of Oregon's memory, a reminder that routine deserves protection, that patience can yield truth, and that even in cases defined by silence, answers can still be found. If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant,